welcome to another episode. My name is Dean Vasic. You can find me on X at hashtag Kangas, Instagram hashtag Kangaroos podcast. Tonight, I welcome back the lovely Siobhan Rowe, my regular on Thursday evenings. Thanks for coming on again this week, Siobhan. Now, we are here to preview the North versus Melbourne game, but let's get your thoughts on last week. It was a big week for the football club. I wouldn't mind getting your thoughts on the pre-game celebration of 100 years and the game itself.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dean. It's always a pleasure to come back on and also to celebrate what was a really fantastic pre-game from the club. All credit to them. I thought being able to hear Dennis Pagan's rev up before the game was quite a moment, and everyone was up standing and cheering. And I thought being at the game felt it was very touching. If you want my sort of honest view on that. When I got home, I watched the broadcast as well to see if there was any sort of difference in when you were there. But I think if you were there, you felt the energy, and it was a really it was a nice moment for all of the supporters who I think in the last however long it's been 5, 6, 7 years that we've kind of had little to no success. I haven't seen a lot of success in my time. I was born in 2000, so I haven't seen a premiership in my life yet. But I think for a lot of the supporters around me, it generated a bit of conversation around the glory days of the 90s and even way before then for our first premiership in 75. And I guess being able to honour and celebrate the legends and I lie. I have seen the premiership in my time. I've seen the AFLW premiership, and it was great to see the girls there and to have Emma Carney really celebrated as well, who's stepped down this week as well as captain, which is some news there for us. Yeah, it was a really well thought out, put together ceremony, and it was nice to hear Dennis Pagan. And at the half time, I was thinking, sack Clarkson, bring back Pagan, because we obviously had a really after the game, and maybe his words may have had something to do with that. So besides the first 2 goals being scored for the Dogs, we had a great fight back, and you can probably put all that down to Nick Larkey in the end, really. And unfortunately, we will be without him this week. And I said to you just before we logged on, I don't know what type of voodoo curse you put on the club, mate, but since we said we're having a great run with injuries, it certainly hasn't been that way at all. So, no, it was a really great pre-game and a special game for the club. And I guess the game overall, we can sort of touch on that together. But obviously, not a great start for the Dogs scoring the first 2 goals, but I thought it was really showed great character for the group to get back involved in the game. And it's never nice to walk away from a game with a 7-goal loss, but in the end, I thought it was another good performance, and it just kind of shows that there's still a really big gap between us and the good sides in the competition. We're able to challenge, if not beat, those around us, but when you're looking at the top echelon, they probably are just a little bit too good for us. There were certainly individual positives and highlights. I thought Will Dawson's role on Sam Darcy was excellent, and it was probably the game of his short career. So that was really nice to see him perform and show his wares. I mean, he's got real toughness about him and good nous, which I think you can't teach. So nice to see that. And obviously, LDU going out concussed didn't help the balance of the team. And probably, I'm not saying it was the end result, but yeah, it probably didn't help things either. And I never ever talk about this on the podcast, and I don't usually raise it because it certainly didn't have an overall bearing on the result of the game. But I thought that was probably one of the worst umpired games of football I've ever seen. And if you look at it purely on stats, I'm talking shit. But if you were there at the game, it was unbelievable what wasn't paid to us and what was paid for the Dogs and what was missed. And I haven't seen the supporter base as irate, and I thought it would just deserve a special mention because obviously it wasn't the end result that cost us, but I would really hope that there'd be some better umpiring this week, because what I saw on the weekend was flabbergasting at sometimes. And even Toby Pink's spoil that was called deliberate out of bounds. I mean, what are we doing in competition if that's where we're at? It's just difficult to kind of comprehend. But I digress. I just thought I'd throw that in there. Overall, I think it just kind of shows that we're just not able to play 4 quarters of footy at Dean. But the passages of play were quite exciting. Even Dawson's spoil that led to a goal, and it was end-to-end sort of passage of play. So we have our moments that we can grip onto, but I think overall as a supporter base and as a group, it is getting harder and harder to continue to front up and lose by big margins and come on and kind of talk about moments and parts of games. I just hope that we're getting closer and closer to stringing together a full 4 quarters and challenging the whole way, rather than obviously the last quarter was really disappointing and the second part of the third quarter as well. But overall, I think they showed some great fight and we had some great moments. I mean, Cooper Harvey's goal from the hot dog stand as well was also quite impressive. And we had our moments to cheer. Nick Lucky's first quarter, I thought he was on track for 15 before he got injured. So there are good things, but I also think we're still a way off it. I'd love your thoughts as well on the game.
Yeah, look, I don't know about you, but I kind of knew that the floodgates would open at some point during the game. Even though it was only a couple of points in halfway through the third quarter, I just didn't think we were ever a chance once LDU came off in the first quarter. Sherry was probably close to best on ground in the first half. I think he had 15, 16 touches, was given his first use out of the middle. He gets a couple of head knocks in the third quarter, fourth quarter. Wasn't the same player. Nick Larkey was playing on one leg for pretty much after halfway through the first quarter. Still kicked a couple of goals on it. I should have had 5 in the first quarter. I missed an easy one, but you don't know if that knee was bothering him that much. Obviously, it is because he can't get himself up for this week. So I just did. I mean, that's 3 of your most important players. And I kind of thought the margin was irrelevant. I just wanted to see a competitive performance, and they were quite competitive with what they had. And there was some silver shoots, green shoots, I should say, like with Will Dawson, obviously doing a good job with Sam Darcy, which could only be a good thing for his confidence and belief in the AFL game. He's only played 5 games. He did a nice spear tackle on Lloyd Vandermeer when he spoiled one of Sam Darcy's marking attempts. And look, there's a couple other players that found form. I thought Bailey Scott found a little bit of form. Cooper Harvey kicking a nice goal. He looks like he's got a bit of class. I'd like to see him, get another year. Hopefully he plays this week. He's on the interchange bench, which we'll talk about soon. But, overall, not too bad. But, you mentioned injuries before and how I've jinxed it. But, Josh Goder's back, Siobhan. So, I mean, he's come out of a coma and played, I think, a half last week. So, that's good to see. But I don't mind getting injuries and seeing some other players get an opportunity as well, Siobhan.
Did you find... Yes, sorry, keep going.
No, you go ahead.
Did you find it strange that we went into almost a shootout with the Dogs, that there was little to no sort of defense in the game for quite a large part of it?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't mind getting your opinion because the game plan has sort of changed over over the last couple of weeks. We've gone from a defensive sort of mindset to almost attacking, going the other way now. And it looks like it looks like Clarko's experimenting a bit. And some for a period of time there's attacking, and then there's a period of time of defending. Maybe next year's more the year they're going to look for a balanced approach. How do you see the game plans over the course of the year? Because it's been a bit offensive and defensive, depending which week it is.
Yeah, this is the part where I kind of go back to the coaching element rather than the list element, and do you recognize what we're trying to do, or do you think that the group is still it's being molded and shifted? Because I agree with what you're saying. I think every week it does change depending on opposition, and I know the reason that we were so competitive after the Good Friday game is we certainly put a lot more emphasis on defense, and we had our moments of attack, but I think the team bought into that team defense style, which we needed to do, because otherwise it's just insane to be conceding the scores that we were. But I almost feel like we've diverted back into a offensive type game, and our defense is slipping a bit. And that might be why opposition teams are kicking big scores and maybe running away with the game a bit. And I don't know how long we can compete with sides if we go all out attack rather than focus on defense. I don't know whether the listers or the group have got the balance of all of that right just yet. And maybe that's the evolution and where you hit the sweet spot where you've got a good element of attack and defense. And I think Clarko speaks about that a lot, about when to know when to go. and when to know when to go slow. But I still think our turnovers are the biggest killer for this
Yeah.
group. Like when we turn the ball over, we get punished. And I guess if you are playing that real attacking style, then you're going to open yourself up to get kind of scored against. So I don't know, Dean. It's a really hard one to try and figure this out because I feel like he obviously knows what he's doing and he's getting the most out of the group. But for the rest of the year, I think the difficulty when you get to this stage of the year is A, you get injuries and that's what we've got, but B, you get sides that are looking to play finals and get into the top four. They've got something to play for, and obviously we're out of contention now, and we're also young and getting tired. And it'll be interesting to see how we play out the rest of the season and what type of footy we play. Obviously it's going to force us to play certain players in different positions and whatever else. But I think this will say a lot about our development as a club in the next sort of period of games, how we go. But maybe we just haven't got the balance quite right. But it seems strange to me that we wanted to challenge the Bulldogs all the way with an attacking sort of open game style. Yeah, and we knew their biggest weapon was going to be their ability to spread and run, which I think they certainly looked really good at doing in the second half of the game.
And you sort of look, I think we could see the 10 plus goals from turnovers in our defensive 50, and you sort of seen a few of them. They were hyper aggressive kicks, really attacking the corridor, and it did come off. Like McKercher turned one over, which resulted in a goal. I think Caleb Daniel did a couple as well. Will Dawson at one occasion was just a bit slow getting the ball off. It's all good and well when it comes off. We did kick some good goals, being hyper aggressive, but the problem is we conceded, I think, a lot more being hyper aggressive. We might have got 2 or 3 goals being that attacking, but we conceded like 60 plus points from it too. So not too sure what he's working on, whether he feels like, well, maybe we're being too conservative and let's for the last 8 weeks, let's just go out there and go all out attack and put the fear of God in the opposition. I'm not too sure, but and give our forwards our best chance. But look, it'll be interesting to see how we go against Melbourne this week.
For sure. And I think the thing is too, Dean, and I'm sad to say this, but I think one of the biggest culprits for turnovers has been Caleb Daniel, a player that we brought into the side for his silky smooth sort of skills and precision kicking, and that hasn't quite worked out. And you look at someone like Riley Hardiman, who I think gives us a great drive and attack from the back half. And when we look good, we look really good, but when we look bad, we look terrible. So I think it's again finding the balance between all of this, which is going to be the hardest thing to do. But it'll be very interesting to see what we do this weekend against the D's, considering we've had success against them this year, and we scored. I don't remember the exact score line when we played.
125 to 66.
There you go. Yeah. So I think we had a really good day and we played that attacking brand of footy, and that probably is what broke Melbourne, especially in the second half. I mean, that 6-goal blitz in 6 minutes that was unbelievable in the last quarter. I mean, if we can replicate anything near that, it'll be a bloody miracle. But obviously without Lucky there, it makes it hard. But I guess, it'll be interesting to see what type of style of game we play.
No, definitely. Patrick Allwood has come in. It was great to see Cooper have some impact. Cooper Harvey obviously talking there. So I'll definitely get your thoughts on him a little bit later. We'll go through the injury list because you mentioned earlier that, I've jinxed it and we've got a long injury list now. So Charlie Cobbett is playing. Nick Larkey injured, probably just for this week. Luke Parker is playing. Luke McDonald out for this week. Might be back next week. Jack Darling is playing LDU 1 week. Just with a concussion. Aiden Core, 2 to 3 weeks. Miller Bergman, Darcy Tucker out for the season. And I wouldn't mind getting your thoughts on this one. Now, the club keep downplaying it, but 3 concussions in 35 weeks. And it's got George Wardlaw as 1 week away with the latest concussion protocols. Clarkson's sort of saying, no, we don't want to change the way he plays. But I feel like that's been a little bit negligent. Because maybe he is going too much head first into contests and he's hurting his head. Maybe there's got to be the technique overhaul with that. I'm not too sure. How do you sit on that? Because I don't like the idea of just downplaying it. Oh, this is how George Wardlaw plays. Because in 2 weeks' time, if he gets another concussion, he's out for the year and his future's in doubt. Like we could have another Paddy McCartney here.
I thought the comments were a little bit strange. And obviously I'm not an expert on head knocks. I don't claim to be at all. But yeah, his commentary today around not changing the way he plays is an interesting one. Jimmy Bartel was talking about this on one of the shows. I think he's Footy Furnace on 9. It was a really interesting segment because he was talking about how him and guys like Joel Selwood changed the way that they attack the ball just for their own protection and safety in many ways. And I thought, gee, we probably want to get him down to the club for many reasons, but also for sort of his commentary around that. And he was saying that you can't really change the way a player, attacks the footy, but certain techniques and things that you can train in sort of game scenarios and things for him would be of great benefit. I agree with that. I think they'd maybe be a little bit irresponsible to play him for the rest of the year. I think it's probably at the stage for him now where it's just the ball kid just can't string games of footy together. If it's not his hammy, it's his head, and it's just I feel for him. But I think for the betterment of himself and for his long-term career, we almost just kind of give him the rest of the year to get himself right. But in saying that, does that make any difference? Is that the rest of the year, or if he gets knocked out round 1 next year, let's say, is that we're going to be having the same conversation again? It's really hard, but I think it's almost at the stage now where you almost want to wrap him up in cotton wool because you don't want George Wardlaw to be the next sort of Paddy McCartan when you just couldn't find out his full potential because he was just so unlucky with injury and concussion head knocks.
Yeah, I think it's a dangerous game you're playing, especially this day and age with CTE. And, like a person's health is more important than any football game. And I think they got, if they give him, let's say they do give him the rest of the year off, they can work with him, in the off season and sort of say, like you mentioned Jimmy Bartel, this is how you sort of attack and tackle because he's getting his head in the wrong positions clearly. And even the last one, Connor Nash, I think it would only be beneficial if he's, he might just have a lot of swelling in his head. I think it would only be beneficial if he has rest. It might just sort his head out a bit more because it wasn't much in the Connor Nash incident last time. It was just a little knock and it seemed to affect him 5 minutes after it happened and struggled. So, yeah, I don't know. Look, I'm no expert, but I'd be pretty disappointed if, let's say, he comes back for a couple of weeks and then gets another concussion. I'd be pretty disappointed if that happened again this year when I think the risk is not worth the reward because there's too much at risk. He's a high draft pick. We need him to work out.
100%. No, I agree with that completely. And I mean, you even look at someone like Jai Simpkin, who I know had some issues with concussion earlier on in his career as well. And sometimes it is just bad luck. I mean, look what happened with LDU. He's not sort of a repeat sort of concussion offender, if that makes sense. But you can get them and it can happen. But I fear for George Wardlaw's future. And I agree that it's probably a little bit irresponsible to send him out there. I also think if a helmet would, I mean, you look at Daniel and Sherry and Brayshaw did it, and whether or not that would be of any help, but I'm sure he's getting, as much advice and care as anyone can get in the AFL sort of elite system. But I would hope that there would be things being put into place to make sure that he has a long and illustrious career with us.
No, definitely. Next player I want to talk to you about, Jackson Archer. No soft tissue injury, but out for the year with an ankle injury. He seems to have almost have that tag as an injury-prone player, Siobhan, and I'm almost at the stage now where you can't rely on him to string not just the full season together, but even a string of games together for more than 5 or 6 weeks because something always happens to this kid.
How frustrating for him, Dean, because I really think not only would he have been the perfect player for Cozzy Pickett this weekend, but I actually think he's shown his wares as being a really tough, hard, reliable player. He did that job on Fritsch last year at the MCG as well, so he suits that medium, small type player in the opposition's forward line that he can shut down. He's a really versatile player as well, and I think he as well just been so unlucky to not be able to string games together and be consistent in that area because he's a bloody talent and it's just unfortunate again that he's just not able to get out on the park because he's probably a missing jigsaw puzzle piece a little bit where we're looking for that medium-sized defender. I mean, we'll talk about how we're lining up this weekend, but we look too tall, and I think he's probably the one piece that we're missing a little bit. So best wishes to him. Hopefully he gets himself right, because I think he's really important for our group going forward, and he's the perfect age now. He's kind of heading into that prime of his career, so let's just hope he can get himself right.
Well, there are rumours, and I don't know how strong these are, that we are into Braden Starcevich from Brisbane Lions, who's out of contract. Good, probably one of the best small lockdown defenders in the competition. So, yeah, I mean, might be a case of we may be looking for someone for that role, because he's perfect for that role. But, yeah, trying to get some games into him. He probably just can't rely on it at the moment. So, yeah, all the best to him. He seemed to be growing a lot last year when he did get a string of games, particularly in the second half of the year. It's just unfortunate that his body's failing him at the moment. It's a bit of a worry when you're only 21, 22 years old as well. Yeah. Anyways, we'll move forward. Last time we played the Demons, Siobhan, was round 2, and we had a big win by 59 points. We look like we're going to play finals. We thought, we're past this, Siobhan. We're flying. Powell, 31 touches, 8 clearances, 10 score involvements. Sherry beating Max Gord for the day as well. 20 touches, 12 clearances, 10 score involvements, and a goal. Zerha, 4 goals. Paul Curtis, 3 goals. Nikolaki, 3 goals. Times were pretty good back then, weren't they, Siobhan?
That was the watershed moment, wasn't it, Dean? And then the Cars unfortunately came crashing down. But the second half of that game, and the last quarter in particular, was unbelievable. There were no bad players on the day, really. And it was party time, which is rare you say that about our list. But it was an unbelievable atmosphere, and we played out of our skin. If we can replicate anywhere near that, it would be an amazing achievement. But obviously it makes it a little bit hard with no Larky there, who had a day out, I believe, with 3 goals. And then we had Zerha contributing with 4, and everyone looked good. Powell probably had one of his better games for the club, 31. It's a big week for Harry Sheezel, I think. I thought he didn't have his best performance on the weekend. So all the stars aligned, everything clicked. It was actually a phenomenal game to be at. But you also reflect on the game a little bit, and I think we match up really well against Melbourne, because they don't have what the Dogs have, which is the tall forwards that can really do a lot of damage. So Clarko's words in the presser at the end of Thursday night were still ringing in my ears today. I was thinking that, big men don't get any smaller, and as the game wore on, obviously, barring some dubious umpiring decisions, Norton and Darcy and those sorts of guys really did stamp their authority on the game. So why I think we're a big chance against Melbourne is that they don't have that sort of forward that can cause a lot of trouble. But a guy named Kasai Pickett also wasn't playing that day.
Yeah, that's right.
Certainly run around and do some damage. So, the stars aligned for us that day. But I think Melbourne, oddly enough, have really struggled. And the crazy part about all this is that if we beat Melbourne and the Swans do the job against, I think it's St Kilda potentially, then we'll go to 14th on the ladder. And I honestly don't remember the last time we were that high on the ladder. It seems a lifetime ago, really. And I'm not saying that that's going to be the be all end all, but it just shows that, we're on the right path. We're climbing up the ladder if we can get the win. It's just I feel the injuries and that are just starting to take its toll a little bit. But we match up well against the D's, if you ask me. And if the midfield group are able to get the job done, it's a big game for Sherry, obviously, against Gawn. That probably even maybe decides how which man's getting fitted with the blazer potentially as well. So a lot of exciting matchups across the ground. But yeah, I feel as though we haven't lost a game at the G this year, Dean. I think that's our domain now. I'm happy to stamp the claim. And it'll be an enthralling battle.
No, it definitely will be. It's like you mentioned, it's fair to say it'll be a different ball game this time, because, Cozzy Pickett didn't play last game. He's very important to that team. He starts in a centre square, then pushes forward as soon as the centre bounce is done. And he's done some very good centre clearances. We can't let him off the leash like we did with Nick Watson a couple of weeks ago. Where we'll just start standing flat-footed. So he's going to be important for him. And Max Gawn wasn't very good that game. Christian Petrarca was still trying to find some fitness. So, very different team from Melbourne. But there were signs last week that we could certainly push them. Now, temperature for this week, 14 degrees with some showers forecast this Sunday and a little bit of wind. So that makes it a little bit more difficult as well, as opposed to the Marvel Stadium
Certainly.
ground where there's nothing there, so no elements come into play. But we'll go to team changes. Into the team come Luke Parker, Jack Darling. They'll come in for LDU and Larkey. Zach Fisher, CCJ, and Charlie Comben come onto the extended bench with Dersma, Scott, Phillips, Harvey, and Hanson Jr. Happy with those changes?
What does your boy have to do, Dean? Geordie Payne, and what does Zach Bench have to do? Look, I think we're a little bit tall, but it just depends, I guess, on if there's a possibility of a laid out or whatever it might be. Hopefully, we get Charlie Comben with 2 working arms. That would be a real big bonus for us. Look, I'm not unhappy, but I'm also not jumping out of my skin. I'm trying not to sound like I'm picking on this kid too much because it's not my intention, but I was really, really disappointed with Zane Dersma on the weekend. He actually looks disinterested to me, and I don't use that term lightly, but he just didn't look like he wanted to be part of the contest. And that was a real shame. And I thought maybe we'd go down the path of giving one of the other smaller type players an opportunity, like a Payne or like a Bench in replacement of him. But I guess he hasn't had the opportunity to have sort of successive games together. He's always either playing as the sub or he's not in the side. So I think it's a big week for him, certainly. I'm also excited to see if we go with Coleman Jones as the forward in replacement of Larkey. And obviously he's got very big shoes to fill, but it's an opportunity, I guess, for him to show his wares, and he's been really good in the VFL. Or whether or not we maybe throw Common forward, and there's or Will Dawson. There's an array of different
Options.
possibilities here, which is exciting, and it might throw the opposition off. So, yeah, obviously losing Davies Uniacke and Larkey, they're probably the 2 top liners of our list. So that's a real disappointment, to say the least. But I'm thrilled to see Luke Parker back. And I think Darling will be a good addition. So, yeah, I mean, that's a bonus. But obviously the outs, Dean, are pretty big.
No, they definitely are. They're 2 of the most important players at your club. Like if you said this about 24 months ago, you would have thought, how much are we going to lose by? It would be a cricket score almost. So at least now we do have. It's a good thing we drafted 100 midfielders over the last 5 years, Siobhan, and we've still got too many for these injuries that occasionally happen once in a blue moon. So. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Zane Dersma. Now, he only had 5 or 6 touches last week. I feel like every time he gets it, he generally does something pretty good with it. But and he's had this problem in his junior career. He was a player that never got many possessions. It's just a case of if he can get it 12 to 15 times, I know he can do good stuff with it. But Siobhan, we've got too many players that play in his position in the forward 50, and I don't know. Look, the rumours are pretty strong. I've heard from a few people that the rumours are pretty strong that he probably is going to look for opportunities at another club next year. I mean, you'd be pretty disappointed if he actually requested a trade, wouldn't you? Because he hasn't really given it his, a really good chance to make it work at this football club.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think it's unfair to compare, but him and McKercher were the same draft. And if you look where both of them are right now in their careers, it's stark and a little bit sort of like frightening, really, at the difference. And obviously they're different players, different positions, all of that. But I just feel like his impact on games should be a little bit more advanced than where that it is right now. And whether or not he goes or stays or whatever is going on, I just hope that he gets the best out of himself. And maybe we're not doing him any favors by playing him where we're playing him. But it's a bit of a difficult one to judge. I want him to succeed, but I just don't really see it at the moment. I think he hasn't had the game where you go, that's why he was a top 5 draft pick just as of yet. He has moments, but moments aren't good enough for a player in the top 5 of the draft, if you ask me.
No, it certainly looks that way. I mean, it's only his second year, so I mean, there's plenty of time. But I didn't like the draft pick at the time, but I got convinced by other people. I just take the best available. Only because I thought, his best work's inside forward 50, and then he can't push him through the midfield. I thought, well, we've got 100 midfielders, we've got 100 half forwards, so I didn't
Yeah,
understand it at the
difficult,
time.
Dean, because I think where is his best position? We know, like I'll go with someone like Will Phillips, for example. I think we now know he can't be played in a position
Anywhere
other
else,
than
yeah.
midfield. That's what he is. And that's where he plays. But I think with Dersmo, maybe we try him in different positions to see, because maybe we haven't given him the opportunity to show where he best fits. Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, I wish we could turn him into a key defender. That's what I wish, because I think, yeah, that's probably the area of the ground that we're still, struggling. And I don't know. I think the drafting there has been poor. We haven't done him any favors. More so to outweigh the balance of him not doing us any favors with his performance at the moment.
I think his best work is inside forward 50.
I agree fully. Yeah.
Look, I think he shows a lot of class there. So, yeah. But at the moment, we've got too many of those types of players. Paul Curtis, Cameron Zurhaar, Harry Sheasel playing half forward. You're going to have a small, you're going to have a resting mid, you're going to have Larky, Darling, Finn Barmelli. You're always going to have two key position players. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this develops. Do you think he plays this week? Or he is on the extended bench?
I probably would think that he'd be the sub. I thought Hansen Jr. coming on for Davies Jr. He probably played close to a full game, really, with how early LDU went out with the concussion. And he had some really good moments. And I actually love the way he's developed as a player. There was a passage of play that resulted in a goal where he put his head over the footy and got the handball out to the running player. And he looked unreal. I think he's really a confidence player, and he's floating on air at the moment. So I hope he gets a full game. But then again, are we doing Zane Dersmer any favors by playing him as the sub? Almost we're setting him up to fail. So it's a really hard one. Maybe Fisher's the sub if he comes in. I was a bit surprised by Fisher getting back into the side. I mean, he said he was managed, but I think maybe he might have been injured, or is he going to play as a small forward, or is he going to play in the back line? All these things are kind of a little bit up in the air at the moment. But yeah, I also want to mention very quickly Bailey Scott's return. I thought he was very good in his return game back as well. Yes, he can be a bit of a butcher at times, but so can a lot of our list. But I thought he gave us a bit of a point of difference with a bit of his sort of line breaking ability as well. So he was very good. I hope he retains his spot on the side. Looks like he will, which is good for him.
No, definitely. Do you think Will Phillips will play this week? I think he comes out, to be honest with you. We've got enough midfielders.
Okay, that's a big call.
Yeah, I think he's on the outer, to be honest with you. For him personally, he's got to leave at the end of the year. Even if the clubs came up to him now, look, here's another year, 12 months. You can't do that. Otherwise, you end up like Eddie Ford in no man's land. So he's got to look for other opportunities elsewhere. And, yeah, I don't even think the club have faith in him. He'll be here next year, and they don't see a future in him, judging by this year. So I think he comes out, to be honest with you, Siobhan.
Yep.
Do you think otherwise?
When you look at the balance of the team, I do think maybe he's going to be one of the unlucky ones to miss out. Yes. I thought he was okay, but he just... What's his point of difference, Dean? Do you ever watch him and go, wow? I mean, he lays tackles and he gets a handball out, but he just doesn't have that wow factor, which is just so unfortunate. But he's not doing anything wrong, but he's not doing anything really right. I think that's the issue with him at the moment. And just
he needs to run at games, I think. He needs opportunity, and he's not going to get that at North Melbourne. Not that we've got a full list to pick from.
No. Even with LDU coming out, I think Parker's obviously the logical replacement for him, and maybe CCJ is for Larky, and I don't know. It's hard. It's hard. I think maybe one of the keys come out. I mean, they won't be game enough to drop Griffin Logue, but I'll tell you what, he's walking on very thin ice. I certainly think he's...
I thought he was actually going to get dropped this week.
Yeah.
Because you got Dawson, Comben, Pink, and Logue. That's four key position defenders. They're all not going to play. They don't have full tall falls to play on, so you don't have to play all four of them. So I assume either Dawson or Comben might play forward, and they might try the three talls. I don't know, Siobhan. This is a very imbalanced team, I feel.
It feels like that this week, certainly. And knowing Melbourne's strengths and weaknesses, it doesn't feel like we've kind of got that matchup right yet. But let's just wait and see when the team's finalised, I guess, for any further judgments. But I was a little bit surprised looking at how it kind of looked on paper, for sure.
No, yeah, I was a little surprised as well. So, yeah, I didn't actually expect anyone from the VFL to, come up, only because I knew we are going to get a few players back
Yeah.
this week. So, yeah, unfortunately, Geordie Payne, Zach Pinch, we'll have to wait another week at least. So, a couple of players that have crossed from the Demons to the Roos. There's not much to talk about here, Siobhan. We've actually had no success. We got Jordan Gisbert in a trade for Braden Bruce, played 0 games. And in 1990, we got John Ahern for 1 season from Melbourne. It was like a pick in the 70s. He never played any games. But the Demons have done pretty well out of us. Obviously, Braden Bruce played 8 games for North Melbourne. Big lumber and ruckman. 9 seasons he played in the AFL. He only played 28 career games. So,
Wow.
yeah. Cam Pedersen,
Yes.
versatile player. 16 games for North with 20 goals before crossing to Melbourne.
Very serviceable.
Yeah, I remember his first ever game. Todd Gosling was late withdrawal against West Coast. We got smashed. And he had to play ruck for the whole game. Yeah, and he did quite well against Dean Cox. So, yeah. The big one, Ben Brown, 130 games for North Melbourne, 287 goals, 4-time leading goal kicker at North, and a premiership player in Melbourne in 2021. So, but look, unfortunately, he probably just couldn't get his body right for long enough, could he, Siobhan? Because for a period there, he was, almost all Australian and one of our, a big part of our future. But he was just having a few dramas with his knees, particularly towards the end of his career, wasn't he?
So unfortunate because Ben Brown, I think, still is one of the fan favourites of North Melbourne. And it was really sad to see him go to the D's. But I think, and he's a premiership player at Melbourne. So at the end of the day, he probably made the right decision to go across. He probably smelled what was coming for us as well. But most definitely unfortunate that the way his career ended. I do think it was those knee injuries that kind of chopped his career down, and I think maybe North knew a little bit more about that when they traded him for sure. But what a guy, what a great human, and also a great footballer. And God, can we just have those days of that Petrie Brown Waite forward line again? That was probably one of my best trio combinations that I can recall watching for our club. So it just that we haven't quite had that same level of, and even Larky and Brown for a while. I mean, he was always the one that bobbed up, and never forget his contribution in that 2014 elimination final against the Bombers, where he was playing on Ariel Steinberg, I believe.
Yeah.
Household name, that one. It was obviously the beginnings of his career, Ben Brown, and he certainly helped get us over the line in that game with some of his contributions. So, what a man, and Melbourne certainly got a good egg from us.
Oh, Mark Thompson's defence, playing Steinberg on Ben Brown, he was on a lot of drugs, so clearly he was on something that game. If you thought that was a good matchup, he had no. That's all I remember about Ariel Steinberg was that game against North. So I think that's all he did for his career. But look, he was huge. That was his first year too, Ben Brown.
Yes,
it was a big part of our comeback. We were about 30-odd points down in that third quarter. So. Yeah, full credit to him. Sean Smith, he played 47 games for North Melbourne before taking mark of the century with the Demons in 1995. His daughter is doing good things in AFLW, Amy Smith. And I won't mention too much about his son, Joel Smith, who's got himself in a fair bit of trouble over the last couple of years. So he's a player that had a bit of potential. But in the AFLW, Libby Birch played in the premiership for the club last season and doing boundary riding for the club as well. Not a bad one to get there.
Unbelievable. And she's a triple premiership player, I believe, Libby Birch. So she's won one at the Dogs.
Yeah, Dogs.
Then she won one at Melbourne and won one with us. So wherever she goes, success seems to follow. So, she's been a great pickup. I thought she was probably that hole in the defense that we had. So, really good to have her come across.
And she's doing some good work on, during the North games as well. She was a lot better than the guy from last year that did it. So, she's doing good work in a bit as a boundary rider. Might have been part of her contract to come to the club. So, but who knows? We'll move forward. So, who you got as a potential match winner for this week?
Look, I think, not to be too broad, but the midfield group were the reason that we won in round 2. And a lot of the time they are the reason why we win games, which is why I get very nervous when they don't have their best moments. Obviously, without LDU in the side, it's going to be a real tricky one. But good to have Luke Parker back. This week's really difficult. I think no Luke McDonald, unfortunately, as well. He couldn't quite get back from that shoulder injury. And I think what made me really sad last week was the fact that he wasn't able to be there for the centenary celebration game too. So I will say it's a bit of a weird one out the box, but it's probably going to be a really big week for. It just depends who gets the matchup on Pickett. So I think that's almost the game there. Do you have an inkling on who it might be that they send him to?
Well, he starts in the midfield and then he goes forward. Have we got a defender that can keep up with him? I don't even know, to be honest with you. Yeah, look, maybe Hardiman might go to him. He's probably the best matchup.
Week for Riley Hardiman because I reckon Keziah Pickett's almost the match winner for the Ds. It's also a big week for Tristan Sherry, and I say that with knowing that he's probably not at 100% fitness, but it's a big week for him personally because I think if he can get on top of Gawn, he probably puts the stamp almost on that All-Australian blazer, and also being able to supply our midfield is going to go a long way as well, considering Melbourne have quite a few threats in there. And the thing is, when you look at the D's midfield numbers, when we go back to round 2, a lot of them had really big days, but they just weren't able to kind of convert. And I think that's the Melbourne's biggest problem is their inability to convert when they get inside 50. So, yeah, I think it's a very long-winded answer, but I think that it's a big week for Riley Hardiman.
No, that's actually not a bad one. Yeah, it'll either be him. I don't think McKercher will go to him. He's not very defensive minded. Caleb Daniels far too slow, and that's about it really. Unless you're going to put one of the 4 tools key position defenders on him, then I'll have to think it would be one of those 3 players. So, yeah, I'll go Tristan Sherry this week. I think he was a big reason why we won and won comfortably last time. He pantsed Max Gawn. Max Gawn's found a lot of form since then, but yeah, if he can nullify his influence, particularly around the centre square, and give first use to our midfield, who are a bit decimated with LDU out of the team, look, it goes a long way towards winning the game. There's a lot of talk about how disgruntled Jake Lever is, so hopefully we can exploit him a little bit. So. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Now you mentioned now we'll talk about the midfield because that is the big talking point with that LDU this week. Do you think Luke Parker? Look, to be honest with you, I'd like to see them push Luke Parker forward and try some other midfielder. I would even like to see Finn O'Sullivan just tried there. I'm at that stage now where I'm sort of thinking about next year and the future a little bit, and the wins aren't as important, but. Or do you think let's get the wins, let's get Luke Parker in midfield, and let's try and give ourselves the best chance to win?
I'm probably along that same line, Dean. And I think purely because if we're unable to remain competitive and even win games in this back half of the year, it's almost going to be like, well, all the progress that we made in this middle part of the season goes out the window. And I think it's really important that we continue to go on an upward trajectory. So by the time we get to next season, it's like, all right, let's launch. Let's actually start climbing up the ladder. So I'm probably of that mindset. May and Lever are going to be really important for Melbourne. If they're able to intercept at will and take the piss and take marks, then it's obviously going to be an issue. Is that your thinking with playing Parker forward, or are you more thinking that you want him out of the midfield to allow more time for the younger guys?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Look, I mean, you can still develop players and win games of football. And I think it's a good opportunity to maybe even give Finn O'Sullivan 4 or 5 CBAs. That's where he plays junior football. There might be something there. Harry Sheezel plays more midfield this week as well. Matches up on Christian Petrarca. Why not? Go head-to-head with him. So, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Luke Parker's 32. He's already banged up. He missed last week because he's banged up. I don't want him to get banged up again this week. And then for the sake of trying to get 4 points, I don't think he makes that much of a difference where you're going to win a game of football this week or not. So, yeah, that's my thinking. May and Lever, they're probably going to intercept anyway, whether Parker's there or not. I don't think Parker has anything to do with that. I mean, it's a big opportunity for Finbar and Darling. this week, so they're going to be really important. Darling is very good at bringing the ball to ground. He very rarely gets beaten one-on-one, so that's good. But even in saying that, I wouldn't mind even giving Darling another week off. He's 32. He's banged up a little bit. He's had a big year. His body's getting a bit, copping a bit of wear and tear. So, yeah, I mean that's my thinking. That it's almost time for the rest of the year. How much we've got? About 8 weeks left to give some of these younger players a really good opportunity and try and develop them for next year. But I can understand their thinking that they want to keep the senior blokes in there. But yeah, I mean that's just how I am at the moment.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying. I also think, it's a really fine balance too.
Yeah.
I thought the changes that we made last week, a lot of them forced, were actually well thought out. I thought Harvey was very good. I thought a lot of the guys that maybe we didn't expect to perform as well as they did were really good. So in saying that, I think bringing in youth and young players can also do the opposite of what I just said in terms of not being competitive in games. I think it can go the other way, and it can rejuvenate and excite the list and in game. I guess it's just about getting that balance right. But I understand what you're saying about bringing in Parker and Darling for this time of year. It's also time for some players to show their wares. I mean, I'm sad for Eddie Ford because I feel like he hasn't also put too many steps wrong, and some of the guys that just haven't had an opportunity. But it is crunch time for a lot of them to show if they're able to make it at AFL level too. So it's a difficult time of the year, isn't it? Because like I mentioned earlier in the pod, sometimes things do start to slip, especially with young groups when it gets to this time of 8 weeks out before finals.
Look, I can understand not playing Will Phillips. I mean, you don't have to play him. He's not going to be there next year. I'm pretty confident of that. Eddie Ford has been a victim of circumstance. We talked about Dersman. He can't play in the forward 50 in his best position because we've got too many forward 50 players. So, which is really unfortunate. It makes it really tough for some of these players and their livelihoods. But that's just how it's gone and how the club have sort of drafted the last few years. It's we've mentioned a million times how imbalanced the list is, and it's starting to really show at the moment that best 22 players on paper can't get in the side. So that's how it is. We'll stay on this game anyway. We don't want to go on too many rants because I could talk about all the misgivings and failures of Brady Rawlings, but I won't go down that path or rabbit hole. What's your final prediction for this game?
Look, it's really hard. If we had our full assortment of players, I would say that we would win. And considering not that long ago, we won by 59 points. That doesn't seem like it was a pipe dream. That was, the start of the comeback sort of story. I do think Melbourne will get the job done, but I think it will be a really competitive and close game. I just think maybe they'll be a little bit too strong in the end. We just have to find a way to play 4 quarters team. We just haven't been able to do it. And if we're able to do it, then I'm going to be wrong in saying this, but I think the D's probably by 3 goals in the end.
Oh, yeah, thinking of that. About 4 goals, 3 or 4 goals. I think they'll just a bit too good. And like you said, missing key players and probably, a couple of other players that are a bit questionable fitness. I don't know how Charlie Common's going to look. He didn't look good last time I seen him. That was a few weeks ago. Tristan Sherry, I'm not too sure how bad his head is or anything like that. I assume he's 100%, but until you actually go out there and see, we won't know. So, yeah, I think you're pretty much spot on there, Siobhan, about a 3 or 4 goal loss. So, yeah, we're very similar in that thinking. Anyway, Siobhan, I think I've chatted to you for long enough. Any final words out there?
I just it's another chance to play at the G, which is super important for the group and exciting. And I guess it's almost like a reverse measuring stick. So I guess we were always saying against Carlton, we'll measure up and see how far we've come since Good Friday. Like we beat the D's by 59 points. Let's see how we go now that we're a little bit banged up. They've got a few of their players back. We're on their home turf, which is our kingdom as well, especially this year. But we'll see sort of how far we've come if we're able to win under duress, which we haven't been able to do considering we don't have one of our best mids and we've lost a couple of key players let's see where we're at in that aspect as well. Be interesting to see.
Well, we'll find out a lot over the next few weeks and where we're at. And so we're playing. Who we got? We've got teams around our mark, sort of St Kilda and obviously this week against Melbourne. So we've got teams around our marks. Richmond. So we'll see where we're at. We'll find out a lot about a lot of players, and we'll see how we go. But it all starts this week against Melbourne, and we'll see what happens there. Anyways, Siobhan, thanks so much for coming on tonight. Once again, you've been on for a few weeks in a row. You always seem to come on when we lose. You never come on when we win, Siobhan. So it's just how it goes, unfortunately. But thanks so much for coming on. Might chat to you next week.
What a pleasure, Dean. And yes, absolutely. Hopefully after a win and being 14th on the ladder, I feel like it would be bloody getting altitude sickness being up that high. So you never know what will happen. But hopefully it's a good result, and let's just hope for a good performance and go Roos.
I remember the first two games under Clarko, we won and we were in the top 8, and then we lost our next 20 after that and slipped down the ladder pretty quickly. So, maybe that's probably the highest we've been since then. So, well, it's actually quite important when you think about it to make little small steps and try and get up that ladder, because at the end of the day, you don't want to give Richmond too high of a draft pick as well. So we'll have to wait and see. But thanks so much for coming on, Siobhan. Thank you to all your listeners as well. I'll be back later this week, either Sunday. Well, it won't be Sunday or Monday. It'll be either Monday or Tuesday evening. Hopefully a review of a win, but we'll see how we go. But don't forget, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment, tell your mates and whoever about it. That's it from me. Bye for now, and go Roos.